So this next story is incredible for a number of reasons. It's from the New York Post. Andrew Yang's anti-circumcision stance cuts deep Jewish leaders. Phenomenal pun. Phenomenal pun. I'm going to give you that pun was something else. Okay? That was solid. But you read the article, and the article, you know, in a pretty straightforward way, says Andrew Yang has an anti-circumcision stance. It's actually not as hard line as they're making it sound. He still believes in the freedom for, you know, people to choose what to do, but he says, I actively make the argument against circumcision. He says originally he wanted to circumcise his kids, and then I believe his wife showed him the other side of the argument and made the case, and he was convinced by the arguments from his wife. And so he said this publicly, and this is viewed, I find it amazing, but this is viewed as like a, you know, as like a controversial stance. Now, I get it. He's going to run for New York City mayor, and there's a very large Jewish community, Orthodox Jewish community as well, in New York City. And so, you know, that might not be his constituency because the hardcore Orthodox ones, it's part of the culture, and there's a ritual around it. And, you know, there's actually really, it's kind of sketchy if you want to know the truth, because there's plenty of examples of, like, I believe the rabbi, so they cut off the tip of the baby dick, the circumcision, and then the rabbi, in some traditions, the real fundamentalists, the real Orthodox Jews, the rabbi will suck the tip of the baby dick off. And there have been instances, there's every year some babies die from this procedure because some of the rabbis have given the babies herpes and the babies have passed away. I think it's like at least a dozen every year. At least a dozen babies die every year from circumcision and from the ritual around it. I'm all in favor of religious freedom, but am I going to judge that? Oh, you bet your ass I'm going to judge that. Do I think that individual freedom and civil liberties and personal sovereignty override religious freedom? Yes. Does the person who's doing the circumcision have a right to suck the tip of the baby dick? No. Would I ban that today? Yes. And if you disagree with that, you can scream anti-Semitism all you want, but that is honestly the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's not anti-Semitic. It's not anti-Semitic to say you're against sucking the tips of baby dicks. Go ahead, make the argument, and let me know how that goes for you. Let me know what every response to you is like when people are calling you the biggest idiot and dipshit on the planet. So anyway, Andrew Yang saw, or was told, hey, here are the arguments in favor of it, but here are the arguments against it. Maybe you should consider this. And his mind was changed. You want to know who else has the same position as Andrew Yang? I do. I have the same position as Andrew Yang. You want to know why? Because I think all the arguments in favor of circumcision are bullshit. I don't think they're solid arguments. I don't think they're good arguments. I think, first of all, the bar to make the argument that genital mutilation is okay, that bar should be really freaking high. I want to genitally mutilate a baby. Oh shit, you better have some really solid reasoning on this one, son. And the arguments just aren't good enough, man. There's the religious argument, the cultural tradition argument, the argument, this is a real interesting rationalization that they've used. Oh, it's about cleanliness. And so you have a lower STD rate or something when you have circumcision. The numbers on that are negligible. And also, is that really a justification to genitally mutilate babies? That maybe not down the road, there's hygienic reasons? It just seems like an obvious rationalization to me. Okay? So listen, I'm circumcised. I think the majority of the men in the country are circumcised, but I think that I don't think that my parents made the right decision. I don't think anybody makes the right decision if they want their kids to be, they want their little boys to be circumcised. But anyway, I digress. So Andrew Yang has this position, and now he's getting shit, and he's going to be called anti-Semitic if he hasn't already been called anti-Semitic. And this is viewed as like a deal breaker with the Orthodox community in terms of whether or not they support Andrew Yang. I find this amazing. And here's the main point, guys. If they don't like you, if the establishment doesn't like you, they're gonna find something. There's gonna be hit pieces on top of hit pieces on top of hit pieces. They're gonna find something to hit you with, and they'll make a scandal where there is no scandal. Like, Andrew Yang's position is, I don't think it's a good idea to genitally mutilate babies, and I was convinced to not genitally mutilate my own babies. And they're like, oh my God, look at this guy. Look at this guy. And the other point is, like, think about how powerful cultural brainwashing really is. Where we've all been sort of convinced, like, what do you mean? We genitally mutilate a majority of our baby boys. That's what we do. And it's viewed as like, well, duh. Obviously we genitally mutilate our baby boys. Why wouldn't we? And it's like, wow. So we like to think of ourselves in today's day and age like, we're not savage anymore. We're not barbaric anymore. We've evolved from our old, more primitive state. And it's like, no, in some ways we're just as primitive as we've always been, you know? And we hold on to relics of the past far too long. And this is an example of Andrew Yang being ahead of everybody. By the way, in the same way he was ahead of everybody when it came to drugs. His position on drugs was to the left of Bernie Sanders. His position on drugs, if I remember correctly, was not only would I legalize marijuana, I believe he said decriminalize all drugs, which is the correct position. He's taking a principled position of like, I don't think the government really has the right to tell you what you can and can't put in your body regardless of the consequences. Again, ahead of everybody on that stuff, but they're always going to find something. They're always going to smear you with something. And Andrew is also, he's not like me in that he'll take a flamethrower to the establishment and he's just like, burn it all down. He's actually much more measured and reasonable and like willing to talk to people in the belly of the beast and still maintain an outsider perspective, but willing to play the game a little bit more than somebody like me is willing to play the game. And even he, having played the game, is still going to be the victim of vicious attacks. So anyway, he's going to run for mayor of New York City, I believe. That's what all the chatter is, and there's evidence and reason to believe he's going to do that. And, you know, as per usual, in so many ways, he's an interesting candidate who has good ideas, and so I'm very curious to see what his campaign is going to be run on. Like, what's the main thing he's going to focus on? Is it going to be a UBI, a version of UBI for New York City specifically? That would be pretty cool. But either way, I'm Team Andrew Yang when it comes to the circumcision thing, man. And I think it's like, I'm amazed at how easy it is to convince people that something as extreme as genitally mutilating babies is cool. And by the way, I'm not saying it's like equally as bad as female genital mutilation, because apparently that is, I think that that's even more painful. Like, I've been circumcised. Am I traumatized from it? Do I have, like, vivid memories of it? No, not really. You know? Like, so, but apparently with women and female genital mutilation, it's different, and it takes away completely sexual pleasure, whereas there's just a reduction in male sexual pleasure with circumcision. It's amazing that we accept this shit. But anyway, I'm not saying it's equal, but I'm saying I am against both. I don't think that they're good, but it's funny how powerful propaganda can be and culture and tradition can be, where Andrew Yang says something incredibly reasonable and is viewed as controversial.